Any more on that note?
Just fun.
All right, Tate. Great day. We have
It's a full
the
house.
whole crew here.
Everywhere
We
you
even
look,
have Ernie
everywhere
showing
you
up.
go.
We thought Ernie was dead, and he is back with us.
We never die. We never die.
We have a great text, another parable where Jesus then interprets it just like we did last week, which means you don't have a choice but to kind of preach it the way he lays it out because well, that's Jesus doing his work. So it is Matthew chapter 13, 24 to 30, and then you skip a bit. And you get to 36 to 43. Yeah.
We're not worthy.
It's the Pericopal system.
You love it, Tim.
We will get after it.
Leave away, spit out my Lord in every way. Yet I'm still welcome in the arms.
All right, Matthew 13, 31, 24 to 30. And then 36 to 44. We're looking at Jesus puts another parable before them. And he says what?
Look like this is compared to this, right?
So this is not a parable about what I need to do.
Right.
It's not a parable about what
This is a
Ernie
parable about
needs
what
to
is.
change his
Right.
life.
How Ernie should live better.
Right.
I
It's a
live the
parable
best.
about what?
Tim.
About what it is.
What the kingdom of heaven is. So
yeah.
that's it. I know I'm
I feel like they
overstating this.
had this conversation
We
last
did
week
last week,
without
we
us.
did.
last week without you.
Yeah, well,
So-
that's why you need to show up.
Matt's back from Nebraska.
Matt's back from Nebraska. He has no decision yet, officially, but we know what he's going to do.
Yeah. So welcome back. It's a kingdom of heaven parable. It's describing that kingdom, and so he goes. Let's just go through it. A guy sows some good seed in his field, right? Which is what you would do.
And then he gets tired.
He gets tired, takes a
lot of
little
work.
nap. No, he goes to bed. And what happens in the middle of the night?
The bad guy shows up.
What always happens in the middle of the night? Robbery, thievery, shenanigans.
I'm thinking.
That's when my
Okay,
dad
but
said,
I would never not think of like somebody showing up in the middle of the night to sow bad seed
in my
your field.
right?
Evidently, you've never been to Oklahoma or
guess
Nebraska, or, you know?
This would hit home a little firmer where he was
That's
just at.
right.
Yeah.
This is why my dad always said, you got to be home by midnight. Why? Because anything you do after midnight, you shouldn't be doing anyway.
That's right.
Actually, I'll be honest, and everybody from Oklahoma can help me out on this. I've never heard of such a thing.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
I'm just laying that out.
So while he's sleeping, an enemy comes and sows weeds. And sometimes I think sermons on this parable will go way out there on the kind of weed, and because I think it's like people say, when it grows up, it looks just like the weeds, and so
Early on.
if and then you don't know till later which is which. Which I guess you could do that, but again,
I don't know. I know what weeds look like. And I'm no farmer. So it's just,
No,
right?
I mean, this is
I mean,
even.
don't listen to Tim. He's not.
Yeah.
A
No,
farmer.
I mean we get this in our Lutheran circles. This is the church visible and the church invisible, right? And our theology even says that in the church visible, you have people who are not of the church.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right,
Yeah,
and so they look exactly the same. So
Weeds in the grass.
we actually understand what is going on here in that context of what's happening.
Right.
Or at least
So
we have a box
he
to
sows
talk about.
weeds.
We do. That's true.
So the field now has both wheat and weeds. It grows up. It begins to bear grain, but the weeds are there also. The servants of the house ask the great question.
Hey, what's your problem?
Yeah, didn't you sow good stuff? I thought you sowed good stuff, right? And what do they want to do? Well, actually, we should say this. I guess he knows that the enemy's done this. He knows what's happened. But what is it the servants want to do?
What I think we would do when we see roots or when we see weeds, we want to pull them out.
Right.
Gather them up, deal with it.
Yeah, quick.
Yeah.
No. I think I love that picture of. I think what we see. You have weeds in your garden, right? I don't have a garden, but if I did have a garden and I saw weeds, I wouldn't wait for them to grow. You would.
Yeah.
Like no thought either. You would pull them out.
Right.
Like impatiently, I think. So, anyways, that's what happened here. Yeah.
Now, the master, though, the one who originally sowed the good seed, he says, no, let's hold off. What is his reasoning that he gives?
You don't want to pull out the good stuff.
Yeah.
Don't pull, because in getting the bad stuff, you'll pull out some of the good grass too.
And early on, that is exactly what would happen. So whether
'Cause you can't
gardening
tell
or
the
whether,
difference.
well, not only can you not tell the difference, but the root systems haven't matured enough either, right? So going back even to the parable of the sower, these roots are still shallow, and if you start to yank them up too soon, you're going to yank up a lot more. You're going to do a lot more damage than
More
good.
damage. Yeah.
With your international harvester.
Yeah. Not yet. That's
Not
at the
yet.
end.
Oh, later.
That's at the end.
See, I'm no farmer.
How come he
Man.
keeps talking like he
Yeah,
understands?
he does. He's bringing these
I'm
up.
okay being blissfully
Yeah, I'm
ignorant
a
about
total
farming.
city.
He's showing himself to me. What is this? Better to keep your mouth shut and let people think you a fool.
Then show your foolishness. I'm sure that's a proverb, right? Yeah.
So let them grow together because you don't want to risk tearing up the good stuff, the good seed that was sown when you try to pull out the weeds. Let them grow together until the harvest time, and then the reapers will come, and he will, and then everything gets separated out. So this is harkens a bit to the wheat and the chaff notion of these things will eventually be.
Well, and this is what he's
pulled apart.
talking about. Like when it's younger, you can't tell very well. But when you, by the time you go to harvest it, you'll be able to tell exactly what's what.
Yeah.
So.
And it's actually easier.
And the patience and the mercy of God. I think a lot of times we see situations as pastors and say, oh, no, that's not it, or that's it, or we make quick assumptions, and we just never know how the Lord's going to work.
Well, sometimes because we haven't come to the end of the age, we think
Yeah.
we know what weeds look like.
Yeah,
That's a good
yeah.
point.
And sometimes, by the time it gets to that final harvest,
That's fair.
Yeah,
you
it's
go-
really
That's
good
profound.
point.
I like that.
you
yeah.
go, oh, wow,
Every now and
that's
then.
not a
I
weed
was
at all.
sure that was a weed. Man. Good thing I
Yeah.
didn't yank you out, man.
But how many times do we do that?
Yeah?
Yeah.
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 We just make that quick. Yeah, I've only been a pastor 8 years, but even in 8 years, there is that little thing of me that just says, okay, no, it's
Yeah.
easy to judge,
Yeah,
and
without
that's
flying
such
to
a.
that. Yep.
Anyways,
No, and actually,
bad.
speaking of that, though, I think the longer you're in this vocation, the easier that becomes to make that snap judgment. Because you get to a point where you're like, man, I've seen this.
This is how this is gonna go.
You already have it pegged out. Oh, this is what's going to happen. They're going to do this and this and this, and you've seen it go, and there's some repentance there that needs to be done. Like
Sure.
when we want to do that kind of quick judgment, it's certainly there. So yeah, he says the reapers will do this at the harvest time. That's the time when these things will be separated out, and they will be really separated. Gathering the weeds first in bundles, burning them, and then the wheat goes into the barn, or storehouse, or I don't know, what other silo maybe? That's a thing, right? Anything else,
I'm
Matt?
sure that's the thing.
What is your
sure.
silo?
I've seen one.
That's the question.
Seen what?
I've never operated one.
I think I need to get you guys a plane ticket to Nebraska.
Yeah,
sorry, just saying.
Sorry, guys.
I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Unless I can go to
No,
the
I
Uptown
know.
Cafe.
No, honestly, Nebraska's
Place
great.
is awesome.
Yeah.
So then the
West
text
Coasters.
skips the parable of the mustard seed in 11 and a little bit about prophecy and parables, which is all important. You should probably read through that and know how it fits in with
And
this.
it actually kind of affects the rest of this. But
Yeah.
that's all right.
But then the text, as we have it before us, moves right to our Lord's explanation of it, just like Tim and I masterfully handled last week. with the sower and the soils, and Jesus then explains it. He now explains it, which we don't he doesn't explain all of his parables, so it's good that we get this.
When the disciples ask too, which I think is interesting. They don't ask on all of them, but they ask on this one.
Yeah. So the crowds leave. They go into a house. The disciples come to Jesus and say, "Hey, about that whole weed and thing, the little help, please." Right? They ask him to explain the parable to them, and so what kind of Jesus is kind of decoding it, if you will.
Pretty clear too.
What are the big pointers? What are the big things we're getting?
Jesus is a sower.
Right?
It's about him.
The sower
and his
is Jesus.
fields. Yeah.
Right? The field is what?
The cosmos.
The world.
The world,
Yeah.
the whole
The
world.
creation.
The good seed is
Kalos.
Interestingly enough, yeah, and this is where it changes from the parable of the sower. The seed in this case becomes the followers of
Right.
Christ, become the sons of. It says the sons of the kingdom, but kingdom, heaven, God.
Yeah. It's not the
all
word
works
of God
together,
in this
so-
particular parable.
Right.
Yeah.
so the good seed
Yeah, good
are
point.
the
people of God.
We would say the believers, right? That's the good seed. So in the world there are believers sown in this, and the weeds are the son of the evil one,
Evil,
Yeah.
right? And
Gives it a
the
name,
enemy
right?
who sowed that is the
Diabolus.
devil. So they are the
Yeah.
fruits of the devil.
Yeah.
That's so I married an axe murder reference. You did?
No,
No?
I did not.
Mike
I,
Myers.
Good. I'm glad.
because I'm
It's
a big fan.
It's an
Nancy
old movie.
Travis.
I haven't
That's
actually
right.
seen that movie.
Oh.
I know it's
That was
been
at
on
Mike
my
Myers,
it's on my
heyday
list. I know.
After
Yeah,
Wayne's
I
World,
know.
right after Wayne's
That's
World.
right.
That's
It's
right.
on my list.
So the sons of the evil one, they're sown alongside. So at this point again,
We
I
lost
think
him.
we talked about this a
gone.
little bit last week, Tim. That
Yeah.
at this point, part of
Bring
what
it back.
when Jesus is doing the kingdom of heaven is like parable, big piece of this is explaining why this looks so messed up or so weird. So if we take this into the church, right? You made the distinction earlier, like part of our theology is this distinction between the visible and the hidden church, right? That the visible church, as we find it, where the word is preached and the
Right.
sacraments
The church
rightly
being
administered,
people, right,
there's
yeah.
the church. But in that place, it's not all good seed. And then we may not even be great arbiters of what is good
Yeah.
and bad seed
Right,
at times,
sure.
right? I mean, we're trying, right? But it's not all good
We don't-
seed,
yeah.
and there's weeds that are there, and it's sort of like, I think preaching wise, you can kind of do this. Like the disciples are sort of saying, "Why does it look all messed up? Like it doesn't look like just this great field
it's
of good
Matt's
seed."
comment too. I've never heard of anybody doing that to a field. You know?
Right? Yeah. Like,
it's like
who would- I thought the field would just
does
have
that?
good
Yeah,
seed,
nobody
right?
does. And by
Right.
the way, we're also not the servants in this either. The angels
Yeah,
Or
it
the
appears that
reapers,
way.
yeah.
are
Yeah.
the reapers. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
even in the field itself, I mean, people are the object of
All
this.
we can do
they're
is
not
grow.
the subject
Yeah,
in any
and
way.
actually that's actually a
Yeah.
good thing to take up too. Is this isn't about again what you or I are going to do, but it's describing the reality
what it looks like. Yeah.
of the kingdom of heaven here on earth. What's happening? He's using this parable to help us understand what's happening, right? So, so the harvest is what? Harvest time is
The end of the age.
Close.
The completion
The end
of
of
the
history,
age,
yeah.
actually,
Yeah.
is. So.
makes you wonder about churches that call themselves Harvest. That's kind of interesting. I don't know what that means exactly, but maybe they have some explaining. to
Maybe
do.
they know. they already know.
They
Maybe
must
they
know
already
something we
Yeah,
don't.
it's
They're
true.
prophetic.
So, so the harvest is the end of the age, and then as you mentioned earlier, the reapers are the angels who are sent out.
Now,
it's-
we could, if we wanted to. Angels is the way it's translated, but it's messengers, right?
This message and
So-
apostles.
So there is that
Apostellos,
there is
there's-
that
yeah.
keys mentality that we might have. But I don't think you need to go there. But just keep that in mind that this doesn't
Yeah, I
have
was
to be
thinking,
fully objective in
So
that sense.
if you think of the Book of Revelation, right, the first part with the letters to the churches, they're addressed to the angel of the church of,
Right.
right, and some people say, oh, well, this is kind of divine being sort of thing, but I think a lot of commentators, in my person, I kind of think he's addressing to the pastor.
the messenger
like,
of the
this is
church.
the guy
Yeah.
that's there, and he's writing. So John's writing to the pastor, the preacher of the word, the sent one.
Right.
And so I think you definitely pull that in here. But I guess the point is, it doesn't, in some sense, it doesn't really matter if it's a person there or it's this heavenly being thing.
Yeah.
They're sent by God to do God's work.
And it doesn't happen until the end of the
And
age.
it doesn't happen until the
So
harvest.
you gotta look at that too.
Right. So they will gather out of his kingdom all causes of sin. I think that's that scandal.
Scandaloids,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
Snares
And
or traps.
the law, the anti-law people, the lawbreakers, the lawless. I think we translated
Yeah,
it.
lawless would be better than lawbreaker.
Yeah,
I
the
think in that
lawless
because it's
ones.
anomos.
Right. And they get chucked into the fiery furnace, cast into it, right? Where there's weeping and gnashing teeth, this is all the image of the place of torment, eternal damnation. And then the righteous, though, the good seed, they end up where?
The Basileia.
Good places.
The good place.
Transfigured.
Yeah.
You could probably even say we haven't gotten there yet, but shining like the sun
In the kingdom
in
of
the
their
kingdom
Father.
of their Father. So
And then it ends with that great line, he who has ears, let him hear. So, preaching this...
So be a good seed.
Yeah.
No,
Well-
sorry.
Be a good, so at the end, what it's really bad is how
hopefully
do
you didn't
how
tell
do
them
you-
that
yeah,
last week.
Go
Yeah.
be
No,
a good seed.
So at the end, though,
Last week you had to be good soil. This week you got to be good seed. It's all about you.
Again,
Wow.
this is
All about you.
this is a good opportunity to talk about the reality of the church, really, and its place in this world, and the reality that the good seed is growing right alongside the weeds, and our Father in His patience, as Ernie brought up earlier, just allows it to go that way, right? To
And
grow.
if you wanted to be really practical, I hate to even use that word.
But you did.
I want to.
I know you do. You know, the idea that they look the same, and you could take this into the idea of everybody spouting, love your neighbor these days, right? But what they mean when they say that is entirely different.
Sure.
And it's really hard to tell the difference sometimes about whether or not this is actually God and His truth being revealed, or whether this is some sort of wickedness trying to infiltrate and look like
Right.
that which is good.
Which is the great deception, anyways, right?
Yeah, and
it's a partial truth that all of a sudden is held up as a complete
Right.
truth.
And so I think you could go really closely to say, for us as the followers of Christ, this is where we have to look really closely at the words and understand that the deception is going to look awfully enticing.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, and look at the
So-
way words are being defined, right?
Yeah.
This is the issue. Even if you talk about something, I mean, just for instance, right? The idea of sex and gender. In the 70s and 80s, sex and gender essentially meant the same thing. It meant the same thing,
Yeah, absolutely.
male or female.
Right.
Now, sex is what you're born with, right?
Right.
It's the equipment you have biologically,
Right.
and gender is all over the map.
My
right?
emotions as I
Right,
feel
it's
myself
whatever
now.
I feel myself to be, whether that's male, female, a combination of both, neither.
Yeah.
Right.
And my gender is
non-binary.
now supposed to interpret my biology.
Right, and so the definition,
Yeah.
those who are creating the definitions, right, deal with the conversation. They dictate the conversation. That's always been, right?
Yeah.
And I think this lends itself to what you can talk about is sometimes when you get deep in the weeds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
we have to know what we're talking about because we can be saying the same thing and mean two totally different things.
I'm just thinking of all of the terms that are out there right now: love and kindness and humanity, right? And what all of that means, and we as the sons of the kingdom have a very different take on that, even though what we say sounds very similar
Sure.
to
That's good.
that which is evil in the world.
All right. Yeah, that's good stuff. On behalf of the Ernie fan club, we're very happy that you are back with us.
Yeah, no stuffed animal today.
That's
It's,
right.
yeah.
And check out craftedpreaching.com. Look at the articles there. Like, subscribe, tell your friends. God bless your preaching.